On behalf of Newsbeast, I would like to welcome everyone. Thank you for watching us for today's presentation on site. My name is Chandrajit Kishore and having more than 10 years of ERP consulting experience. Today we are presenting Single Hub. We named the 10.7 site as Single Hub because if you will see, Single Hub in real business is nothing but the single establishment of service office, sales office, warehouse, manufacturing unit in a particular logistic zone. Hence, we'll see in further slide how the 10.7 site will help to establish Single Hub. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any question during the presentation, please send them to the mail ID info@nichebees.com. I'll answer them personally to your respective mail IDs. Let's start with the scope of webinar. The scope of this webinar is to get the answer of what is site, why to use site, how the site will help to manage new global scenarios of administrative and external business location, and at the end, what benefits does an organization get by implementing site. For better understanding of site, I have taken the example of single logistic multi-finance, where single logistic company have two different sites and each site have its own set of departments like sales office, service office, warehouses. You can see in this pictorial representation, and same pictorial representation is being used in all three slides of what is site. So what is site? Represent the logistic flow of the transaction. Yes, in previous version of ERP we could separate the financial flow of the transaction based on EU, but not the logistic flow of the transaction. But now, after site introduced, various logistic data, commercial data, planning data, and other master data available at more detailed level rather than company level, and that is site. So now we can determine the logistic flow of transaction within the multi-company structure. Collection of multiple warehouses and departments which are under same logistic company. It means that each sites will have their own set of departments such as purchase office, sales and service offices, warehouses. Unlike previous version of LM where departments were available at company level only. Additional layer between the companies and various departments. What is the meaning of additional layer here between companies and various departments? Here we need to understand before site, departments were used to link with EU, which used to decide the respective operational and finance company. But now, after site introduced, we link site as well to determine which logistic company the respective department belongs to. So for better understanding, we need to understand here first how operational companies is different from logistic company in LN context. First, the operational company is the company to which a department, warehouse, project or internal business partner belongs to. Second, the company in which the entity was created. Third, transaction originating from the department, warehouse or project can only be created in the operation company. Hence, the operation company of a logistic department, warehouse, project or internal business partner must be of the type logistic or both, and the operational company of an accounting department must be of the type financial or both. Hence, the difference between operational and logistic company is all logistic transactions will be originate from operational company and will flow to logistic company and will be stored in company database. In LN, we define the company structure for determine type of company. In this example, we have the company type both financial and we can define the company type as logistic as well. Site. Link the logistic company with site to determine the logistic flow of transaction. And we can see here each site have their own set of warehouse, department and service location. EU. Same like earlier version, we define EU to determine financial flow of the transaction. Or we can say to determine which financial company the respective logistic transaction belongs to. Default supply source. The new enhanced feature of 10.7 which help us to map the default supply source of item, and later it will be lead for cost price calculation as well. Why companies prefer to go global? Small domestic market? Yes, if domestic market are small and companies which have ambition to become big will have to look for bigger market outside their boundaries, or the domestic market are saturated. slow growth rate in domestic market. Third, attractive cost structure globally. Companies may move their operation to regions and countries where cost of production are lower because of raw material availability at lower price, cheap labor, or other resources. Supplier follow their customer. A multinational company would want its supplier to supply materials and equipment to all its international manufacturing locations. Then the supplier is forced to move at many international locations to be able to serve their buyers. How administrative offices help companies. Earlier version of LM, there was no concept called administrative site, which is now mandate for global scenarios, which helps to map centralized sales support, known as sales administrators, act as the connecting piece between the customer and the salesperson by doing things like processing orders, keeping track of customer information, and providing post-sale customer service reports. Whereas in purchase, the internal administrative purchase office, which helps on all legal aspects of the internal administration, such as contract management, including procurement of goods and services, price negotiation on behalf of their subsidiaries, leases of premises, and purchase of property, etc., etc. Let's take an example. Let's understand the administrative office concept in pictorial representation. In this example, we'll assume that same administrative office is either purchase administrative department, sales administrative department, or centralized service department. Customer place the order to customer support, the call and support center that receive the service calls or sales calls or do the purchase calls to respective vendors. The field service centers that handle the service order, the sales office that sells the end item, or the purchase office that orders spare parts, raw material or component, and subcontracts if necessary. The administrative office inform about sales order, service order, or purchase order to warehouse. The warehouse that contain and ship the spare parts in case of service, store and ship the finished goods if it's a sales, or receive the material from vendors if it's a purchase. If it's a sales, administrative office will raise the invoice to customer once material shipped to customer. If it's a purchase, administrative office will make payment to supplier once material received to warehouse. And if it's a service, administrative office will raise the service invoice to customer once service completed. In LN, we define the site separately as administrative site. Why MNC requires central procurement? According to a case study from IAE Business and Management, Argentina, which says that why MNC should go with central procurement. They found that a product can be considered as global only when all the manufacturing plants produce the same product with same quality and supply the same globally. Hence, in case of global supply, company follow the procurement strategy where operational and strategic material will be purchased through the central procurement office, whereas non-critical and high volume C type of material would be procured locally. We saw in previous slide why companies prefer to go global with administrative and external site. Hence, support this business process, ERP LN 10.7 site have introduced administrative site to map centralized procurement, centralized sales and service, costing type and costing source. For more detail, we will see in upcoming slide. External material delivery purchase, introduce map central procurement. External site, which would help the business to integrate with the warehouse or the location which belongs to external party such as customer or a subcontractor. Let's start the central procurement with LN 10.7. How we do the centralized procurement in LN 10.7? Define the administrative site, which is meant for administrative tasks only, like researching potential vendors, comparing and evaluating offers from suppliers, negotiating contract terms of agreement and pricing, track orders and ensure timely delivery, enter order details like vendors, quantity, prices into ERPLN, monitor stock level and place orders as needed, coordinate with the warehouse staff to ensure proper storage. So Bottom line is there will not be any production, logistic or warehouse activities here, hence there will not be any inventory movement at this site. Second, we define costing type and costing source, which is important to map central procurement in LN. The costing type logistic. The standard costing data is applied to the enterprise unit of the warehouse because this costing type only used for an item that we receive in a warehouse. The costing type purchase. This costing type typically used for central procurement where the standard costing data relates to a purchase office that buys the material for other finance company but not store the material in his warehouse. The goods are received in the warehouse of a different finance company. The purchase office usually has an intercompany trade relationship with the finance company of the receiving warehouse. The costing source. Based on what source price the standard cost calculation will be calculated. Suppose if costing source as job shop, then material, operation, surcharge would be considered. If it's a purchase, then material purchase price would be considered. And if cost source is subcontract, then subcontracting price of component would be considered. I'll make separate PPT for detailed understanding on costing source as intercompany purchase and intercompany transfer. How the centralized procurement will work in LN. Purchase administrative department will raise the PO to their supplier and same will work in LN system by entering vendor details and using purchase office which is linked to an administrative site. We'll enter the item and quantity for which the PO is been raised and mention the warehouse of different finance company where the supplier will deliver the material directly. We'll receive the material directly into the warehouse of different finance company. As purchase office and warehouse is from different finance company, hence purchase administrative office will raise the internal invoice to warehouse. And last, purchase administrative office will make the payment to their supplier based on agreed price. This is typical example of vendor managed inventory with external site. Supplier having external warehouse at customer premises, which is managed by supplier. Customer will send the forecast and actual demand to the supplier. Supplier will confirm the supply based on inventory level of warehouse, which is at customer site, and its production capacity. Supplier will start doing production based on confirmed supply. After production completion, supplier will start doing warehouse shipment process and will send the ASN to the customer. After ASN, supplier will ship and replenish material to customer warehouse. Customer will send the receipt confirmation to supplier. After replenishment of inventory, customer will start consuming the inventory as per his requirement. Based on consumption and inventory level, supplier would raise the invoice to customer, and finally, customer will make the payment against the raised invoice. Now, based on previous slide example, we can map same into the LN by defining site as external site, as we can see in this example. In external site, we can define the warehouse where we keep the inventory owned by our company. Our company only will manage and perform the planning. We can see the inventory level and consumption detail at site and warehouse level. ERP LN site helps in VMI and subcontracting business environment by recording replenishment and consumption in the supplier or subcontractor administrative warehouse which are located at external location. By mirroring the warehouse with the customer or subcontractor warehouse from which the customer subcontractor consumes materials supplied by the supplier or manufacturer. We'll make separate PPT for more detail on full VMI with external site. What are the benefits of site? First, elimination of multi-logistic and multi-finance setup. Before 10.7, you need to have more than one logistic company if there are different item structure. If this implies, then there would be different cost prices for the same item. Hence, you must have multiple logistic companies. But now, since BOM and routing can be maintained at site level, can map through single logistic and multi-finance. Second, ability to maintain BOM and routing at site level in single logistic environment. Let's take an example. In a multi-site manufacturing environment, there can be differences in the bills of material and routing because they may build similar product across their operation, but they cannot always use same materials and processes due to different constraints, probably machine and material unavailability. Hence, accommodate such variants like BOMs, routing, and other master data will be maintained at site level. Third, standard cost by enterprise unit instead of by company level. In earlier version of multi-site environment, the calculated standard cost of an item available for entire company. Hence, it was clear meaning that the same item cannot have the two different standard costs in same company. Now in 10.7, with site activation, the item costing data can be calculated and available by enterprise unit instead of by company. Fourth, centralized procurement through administrative site, as we saw in previous slide. Fifth, centralized planning using single cluster across sites. Now planning cluster is mandatory to facilitate centralized planning. Sixth, multi-sourcing. Same item can be purchased in one site, produced at another site. For this, item type product introduced. The item type purchased and manufactured has been merged now into the item type product. The reason for merging is the supply of an item can differ for each site. The item can be purchased at one site and subcontracted or produced at another site. Seventh, supplier visibility to stock label helps in VMI scenario to help supplier see potential need at a specific site. And at the end, I would summarize and say with the LN side, companies would be capable enough to minimize diseconomy of scale. How? Suppose diseconomy of scale is because of slow production rate, poor communication, poor coordination, issue in production process, inefficiency of resources, etc. For example, if a product is made of two components, component A and component B, diseconomies of scale might occur if component B is produced at a slower rate than component A. This forces the company to slow down the production of component A, and this will lead to increase its per unit cost. Therefore, company decide subcontract the same item to scale the diseconomy of scale to economy of scale. This can be easily achievable through new option of 10.7 called default supply source, as we discussed in previous slide. After you have watched the presentation, we would love to hear from you. We would now be interested to hear from you with your thoughts or questions. Please contact us for any queries on LN 10.7 site. We will be more than happy to assist you. Thank you.